Vintage military divers are one of my favorite type of dive watches. There's just something so very cool about a watch that's tough enough to be issued for military use. And today's piece is inspired by a military issued watch from the 70s, but somehow they've managed to make it even tougher. Here's the watch in question. Let's take a look at it. Hello internet friends, and welcome back once again to the Quality Time channel. My name is Lester and I'm really glad you guys are here to take a look at my new review. Just give a bit of background, around the end of 2020 I found myself looking for a new blue diver. Just a really handsome look, I think, and I was looking for a new one. Browsing around, I really liked the look of the Tudor Snowflake, which is a military submariner from the 1970s. Now, this watch was originally issued to the Marine Nationale or the French Navy and is a highly sought after by watch collectors for its sharp looks and military history. The French Navy changed a lot from the usual, Rolex Tudor watch design. For example, they used a square handset to make it more readable, and this new square handset is now, you can find it on Tudor Blackberry models, for example. While the old snowflakes are going for a king's ransom nowadays, one company has taken design cues from this watch and updated it for more modern times, and the result is this watch. This company is known as NTH, and they are based in Philadelphia. NTH, which stands for Nod to History, takes inspiration from classic vintage designs and creates watches for the watch wearer of today. Now, one such model is this Nacken Modern Blue, and this particular piece is heavily inspired by none other than the Tudor Snowflakes of old. Now, I've always have heard good things about NTH, but I've never held one in my hand. But when I saw this picture of this watch on this Beads of Rice bracelet, I knew I had to have it, and the crush deepened and I pulled the trigger. Now, before we get started, let's do our wristwatch check. Today I'm wearing the Casio Lineage chronograph, which I reviewed in my previous review. This is a quartz chronograph with just a ton of functionality, and I really enjoy it. And if you think it looks good, make sure you check out my review of it. The link is in the video description. All right, let's get started. All right, now this watch is from NTH, based out of Philadelphia, like I mentioned before, and is from their Nacken series of watches. This is the NTH Nacken Modern Blue. It is a dive watch with, you can see by the dive time bezel here. The case material is 316L stainless steel. You've got a satin brushed top and sides, and you've got a very nice, as you can see that here, a nice polished chamfer on the edges here. I think the case looks really good. And you've also got drilled lugs, which is really good to see. The case size is 40 millimeter. Actually, the bezel is 40 millimeters. If you measure from the case, it's slightly protruding, so you're looking at about 40.5 millimeters case. The case thickness is only 10.7. And with the crystal, you're looking at about 11.3 millimeters. You've got a very short lug to lug of 47.4 millimeters, and you've got a standard lug width of 20 millimeters. Size for my 6¼ inch wrist, we are looking at 138 grams. Now, the bezel is quite unusual. It's actually a stainless steel bezel, and what they've done is they've coated it with PVD, which gives it that blue color. And you've also got white loomed markers on the bezel itself. So usually, if you see a steel bezel, it's going to be just silver, the stainless steel color, but they managed to coat it PVD and that's how they get that blue shiny effect. I think it looks fantastic. The bezel itself is a rotating dive time bezel with a very nice action and really grippy bezel, so you can easily turn it even while I'm wearing gloves, which is really nice. Everything lines up real good too. The crown is a screw-down crown. There are no crown guards, but it is screw down. The action is pretty good, quite smooth. Here we go. It pops out real nice, and I can wind the watch. Not quite as smooth as the Steinhardt I reviewed earlier, but still not too bad. Doesn't feel too gritty or anything. It's quite nice. If I pull it out to the first position, I can change the time. See here. And if I pull it all the way, you can see that it does hack, and I can set the time just like so. All right, let's get it out of the way of all the printing. Okay, and let's screw the crown back in. The screw down crown is signed, as you can see, with the NTH logo. And one cool thing about it is it's also a loomed crown. So that part will actually light up, and I'll give you a loom shot of that as well in action. The crystal is double domed sapphire. So you can see there's very little distortion when you turn it to the extreme angle, which is really good. And there is also anti-reflective coating on the underside. The dial itself is actually a matte blue dial with blue printing. You can see the NTH logo at the 12, and then Nacken 300 meters, 100 feet at the 6 o'clock. Now, this particular watch has two other variations. There's also a modern black, which is, of course, as the name suggests, a black model. And you've also got their Renegade model, which is a sort of, it's got like a blue gradient. It starts off blue and it fades to black to the edges, which also looks quite nice. In addition to those two colorways, you also have your choice of an oyster, standard oyster bracelet, or this beads of rice, which I opted for because I currently don't have a beads of rice bracelet in my collection. The hand set is also quite nice. You've got the snowflake style hour hand and a pencil minute hand, and of the snowflake square lollipop on the second hand. The markers are all applied. You've got the triangle at 12, you've got large batons at the 9 and 3, and you've got squares represent for the other hour markings. There is a date complication on this model. Actually, I forgot to mention that you can get this as a no date as well, but I did opt for the date, and it is a white date at the 6 o'clock, which I think is great because it kind of looks like the other markers. So I don't mind it not being color matched because it sort of is integrated there. The loom is Tritech Swiss Super Loom Nova. You've got BGW9 on the markers, the handset, and also in the bezel. For the case back, it's very undecorated. It is a screw down case back, and you can see that there's really not much printing on the back at all. You get a water resistance of 300 meters, which is nice. And on the inside is a Miyota 9015 movement, which is a high beat movement from Japan. It has 24 joules and vibrates at 28,800 beats per hour or 4 hertz. And has a power reserve of 42 hours. The band material is 316L stainless steel. And again, I opted for the 7-link beads of rice, which I think suits the designer really nice. It is a really nicely finished bracelet in my opinion. The links are solid. Okay, and there are screw links, which is good to see. If I could show you some of the screws here. Okay. Right, there you go. So these are screw links, which is nice. The end links are also solid. Okay. And in terms of the clasp, it is fully milled. It is a double, oops, my glove got caught there. Double push button deployment clasp. Nice solid action there with a flip lock. The clasp is signed on the flip lock with the NTH logo. And you have a whopping 6 micro adjusts. So it's very easy to get a good fit with this bracelet. I think they did a great job there. Now, one cool thing about this watch is the warranty. They call it the 6+6 guarantee, which means you have 6 weeks to return the watch if you don't like it for any reason. And if you do like it, then you have a 6-year guarantee on the movement. Now, they do state that in the 6 years, you need to have serviced the movement at least once within 5 years of ownership for it to sort of take an effect, but it's still a 6-year guarantee, which is really, really nice. And in terms of stated accuracy, I managed to get on this watch, it settled in around 12 plus 12 seconds a day with 0.2 milliseconds of beat error. at the 51-degree lift angle for the Miyota 9015. So what do I like about this watch? Well, I mean, it just looks so nice. I really love the effect of the matte blue dial with the shiny sunburst steel, blue steel bezel, which kind of gives it that, you know, the matte, if you kind of move it in the light, it's the bezel that is sort of shining, and then but you can still have high legibility for the dial. I think that's really neat. It's a really nice touch. Makes it look fancy, but also, you know, very legible. The PVD coated steel is also more durable than your aluminum, so it's very difficult to scratch this puppy compared to like just a coated aluminum bezel. And also having it loomed is lume markings on the bezel as well is a very nice touch. The applied indices is something also I appreciate compared to the painted of the original Tudor Snowflake. So this one they used applied indices and everything lines up real nice and they applied it really good. So really no complaints there. I do prefer applied indices over painted in general. The nicely integrated date wheel is also great at the 6 o'clock. Gives it a nice symmetry, and leaving it white makes it look like the other marker, so you don't really break the design at all. There's great registration like on the marker, so everything is where it should be. Nothing is out of place. And also the bezel lines up real nice with the 12 o'clock, so you know they really did a good job with the registration there. The beads of rice bracelet that I chose was a really smart move. I really like this bracelet a lot. It's got a ton of micro adjusts, so it makes it really comfortable. And because there's so many micro adjusts on here, and also it's a very nicely articulating bracelet because of the number of links, so it's a very comfortable bracelet overall. It got excellent 300 meters of water resistance as a proper dive watch. You've got a double dome sapphire with the AR coating, so very little distortion, and also anti-glare, which is great. Also, guys, the lume on this watch is killer, and I'm going to throw up a lume shot so you can see what this puppy looks like in the dark. The bezel action is really nice and solid and very easy to turn. It's a really great, nicely designed bezel, in my opinion, and I can do it very easily. There's no back play at all. It's very solid feeling, very clicky, and even with gloves, not a problem. You've got a very nicely finished thin case, and I think this is partly because they used the Miyota movement to keep the whole profile very, very thin, which I really appreciate. And it's also a very wearable 40 millimeter size, even for my skinny wrists. This looks great, especially with the short lug width of 47.4, I believe. And the female links here, you can see it drapes down real nice. And you see the case also sort of curves to help conform to the curvature of your wrist. You've got a very solid high beat Miyota movement inside. And you have to mention, again, the 6+6 guarantee, which means that NTH really stands behind their watches. So these are all great things about the Nacken Modern Blue. So what don't I like about this watch? Well, guys, of course, it's very difficult to be a perfect watch, but this is so close to be a perfect watch, and I'm going to just go over some of the things I discovered while owning this watch. Now, the only thing I would say, the most major thing that I noticed is the crown. Now, the crown is great. The operation is fantastic. It's pretty oversized there, so it's easy to operate. However, this edge, I don't know if you can see that, but the edge here with the knurling is a little bit sharp. And when I wear this watch, I like to wear my watches generally below the bone, below the wrist bone, and this part ends up kind of digging into my hand. On other watches that have this similar design, you don't get that really sharp feeling. And I think that this is one, of course, sort of design area that they could improve on, is that, you know, the finishing of this could be a little more rounded or smoother or something. As it stands, the crown sort of digs into the back of my hand sometimes, and I really do notice it. So that's, I would say, the major complaint, if you will, about this particular watch. I also would have preferred a display case back. I know they say on their website that it's sort of like a no-nonsense design, which it is, but you know, I generally prefer display case back so I can see the movement sort of wearing away. I guess it would have made the overall design a little bit thicker, but I personally would have preferred a display case back. I know some people don't really care. Again, you can't see the display case back obviously when you're wearing the watch, but I thought I would mention it. And finally, if I had to nitpick, it is not the most accurate piece in my collection at plus 12 seconds. I have other watches that do much better than this. Again, plus 12 seconds is not bad. It is within the Miyota 9015 specification. I would have preferred a sub 10 second if possible, but I mean, yeah, it's not that big a deal, I guess, but I thought I would mention that as well. So it's not the most accurate watch in my collection. But aside from that, I really don't have much else negative to say about this particular watch. So then, conclusion time, guys. Well, if you don't already know, this is an absolutely cracking watch. You know, I really struggled when writing this review to come up with any negatives. And it really tells you how well that NTH has executed this particular piece. They've taken a beloved classic design and somehow refined it even more. The applied indices compared to the original, painted indices, you've got a stunning PVD coated bezel, which is great. Improved water resistance, you've got another 100 meters compared to the original. And it shows you that they didn't just, you know, NTH just didn't photocopy the Tudor Snowflake and call it a day. They actually updated it with more modern materials and sensibilities. So for around $700, what you're getting is an eminently capable and tough dive watch with a high beat movement, double dome sapphire. You've got lume absolutely everywhere and a really killer bracelet. Guys, I really think that if they could have just refined that crown design a little bit, make it a little less sharp, then they would have really had the perfect dive watch. But as it stands, the NTH Nacken Modern Blue is absolutely a centerpiece in my current collection. And with the amount of value it delivers, I mean, it's really hard to imagine how much better things can get as you go up in price. Now, it doesn't have the same name recognition or history of the watch that inspired it, but this piece from NTH is incredibly solid, and it really is currently the favorite blue diver in my collection. Well, dear friends, we've come to an end of another watch review here on the Quality Time channel. I'm really glad you guys stopped by to finish your video review with me. I really like this piece. Please let me know in the comments what you think of it as well. And as always, please like and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of my future watch reviews. As always, my name is Lester, and I want to thank you for spending some quality time with me. Take care now.